You're experiencing the Authentic Chaos podcast, an exploration into our inner selves and journeys of self-discovery. I'm your host, Vahagan Yarnosian, and joining me today is a good friend, Tessa Heron.
Yo.
So, month of February, it's the month of love, so we're doing our dating series here on Authentic Chaos. And Tessa and I are going to talk about a topic that really, you could say, haunts people in the dating world: ghosting. So, yeah, right? Spooky. Spooky February. So, what does ghosting mean to you, Tessa?
I think it's okay. Yes. Actually, since we've defined it previously, this is for another time. Ghosting is like maybe the most least caring thing you can do to somebody. You know, to end a relationship by saying nothing. Is this is that what you think ghosting is? What do you think?
Yeah, I think there are like a lot of, there's a spectrum of it. I think if you were looking for a general definition, I would call it like, yeah, ending a relationship in like the general sense, not specifically like boyfriend, girlfriend, or something like that, but ending any sort of relationship you have with another person with without saying anything, or just like ending the like just saying nothing and blocking
Yes.
them or being unavailable for them, just totally removing yourself from their lives. I do want to clarify that I think that ghosting doesn't mean that if you ran by a stranger and they said hi and you didn't say hi back, that you didn't really, that's not ghosting. And similarly, ghosting doesn't mean like, hey, if you're chatting with someone on an app and you never met up but like you stopped talking, I wouldn't consider that ghosting either. I think a key part of it is whether or not you intentionally met the person, like in person, to establish like an initial, at least an initial like seedling of a relationship.
Right. Yeah, there's this element of uh, mutuality in the beginning.
So
Yeah,
one thing you mentioned is that you find it one of the like the most least caring thing you can do for someone.
that is what I said. Mostly
Yeah.
scaring.
And I think like it's a good point. It is like one would ask, and I used to ask myself this all the time, like who would ghost someone? Like who would ghost like some, cuz like I know that I'm a complex person worthy of love and getting to know. So why would someone just like cut me out like that and not want me in their lives? I know I'm complex.
I
You know
know.
you're complex. The
Yeah,
listeners know they're complex and worthy of love.
totally. I know. And it can really do a blow to your self esteem to wonder that, right?
Yeah.
To think about why that would happen to you just with no, and it makes you second guess yourself. It makes you question yourself because it's so disorienting.
Yeah. I think it would be insightful to for us to think about, like, maybe as a thought experiment, why would someone ghost? Like, if it is the least caring thing, the most least caring thing you can do to someone, why are some reasons that someone would ghost another person?
I would say the primary reason is shame.
Hmm.
Like they're either ashamed of how they feel and can't express it, or they're ashamed of their situation, whatever it is that they yeah can't can't put into words.
Well, I mean, so why would you? So let's say the hypothetical, like you were chatting with someone and or like someone was chatting with someone, they went out for drinks, and then they decided to ghost. Like, where would the shame? Where do you think the shame would be in that case, or could the shame? Where could the shame
Mm.
be?
I mean, yeah, maybe. I think also, okay, so I think that's a good situation, you know, but it would be so simple to say, hey, it was nice to meet you, but I'm good,
Yeah.
or this is the end, whatever. And like, why would you be unable to say that? I think there's like a little bit of fear of the rebuttal or the person saying something back, you know, trying to change your mind
Mm,
or asking follow-up questions people just want to avoid, which is unpredictable.
yeah. So like that shame could be part like fear of being hurt back, or like being put in this
Totally.
uncomfortable situation, maybe.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what about um what if it was like, oh, they weren't really interested and like didn't really feel like they didn't deserve, or like maybe they felt like, oh, I don't they don't deserve to have a response. Like you
Oh,
just went into one drink.
shit. I don't know. I don't know. I guess that's one way to treat people. Shit.
it, it does seem like it does sound like a pretty uncaring attitude, and like this is a
I don't know why
hypothetical.
people are so hesitant
I
to
don't know
just
of
say what
anyone
they're
who has.
thinking.
I don't know anyone who has done that, so I'm just speaking hypothetically here. Sorry, didn't mean
Yeah,
to
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's yeah, it's hard to say. I could never do it, you know.
yeah.
I'm always know what I'm thinking,
Hmm.
and I know if other people need to know about it too, you know.
Yeah.
I
Okay,
don't
I'm
mind
gonna I'm
sharing
gonna
it.
get back to that in a bit, but I want to like definitely stay focused on like the why people would ghost. I think so. I think like shame you mentioned and like the fear of getting hurt is like a really good point.
Mm.
I think a lot of that is probably like not even necessarily afraid of being hurt back, but afraid of the uncomfortableness with rejection. Period. Like it it sucks to reject someone. Like it's a kind of a sensation that like you're like pushing someone out of your life. Like it's not a thing that we really learn to do like growing up. Like we grow up in a very inclusive environment full of love, hopefully, but like we're not taught to like exclude and like repel. So I think it's a difficult feeling to deal with. And I know like personally in my when I was younger and didn't really like know who I was, or like was respectful. I wasn't very respectful for my emotions, and so I would get
Mm.
like this like pain, discomfort with like not being interested in someone who was more interested in me. Like
Mm.
that imbalance like kind of made me like nervous, and like I would go out of awkwardness, but like I wasn't happy, and it wasn't the right way to do it. And I think part of that was that I would rather like go on a date with someone I didn't want to go on a date with than deal with my emotions of like being honest with myself that like I wasn't attracted to someone and like wanted to push them out. And so I think in those situations I was afraid, and maybe it can be attributed to shame, but like I didn't want to deal with that. So that seemed like the lesser of like all these evils.
That's like the opposite of ghosting.
I know.
That's like
I know, but like
that's like
later I'd ghost, I mean.
silently
Like,
staying with somebody.
well, and these were never for long periods of time. It was only like it
Sure,
wasn't
sure,
that I
sure.
wasn't dating them for that much, but like I literally, this is going to sound awful, but I kind of escaped California and was grateful at that as a reason to like exit these situations.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I
Just
was
like the
very young
songs.
then, so like I didn't really know what I was doing or like who I was. I was just like trying to see what like what worked, like
Wow.
trial and error, like the scientist I was.
So those ex-lovers are listening to this and being like, he changed.
Oh my
He's
God.
finally
If they're
changed. He can
actually
come back
listening, that would be
now.
impressive reach.
No, but this is every person who's been rejected's dream, right?
Yeah.
Is like to have this person reach back out later and be like, I understand how wrong I was now. You
Right, but
are
like why?
perfect.
Why is it like that's another like fascinating part. Like I've seen so many people be like cling to the people that rejected them in their lives. I have like good friends who
Totally.
like remember their exes from years ago, and I think it's that like that uncomfortable discomfort we have with rejection, and that like our brains never learned that we have to keep the family together. And when the family breaks apart, it's like, well, maybe one day they'll come back. Maybe one day they will bring that affirmation of love back into my life. And so I think so maybe like, and I'm spitballing here. Like I haven't done any studies on this, but like it would kind of make sense to me that like this fear of like being in an insecure place with where you were rejected out of love. I think that's part of the reason why people like cling on to the past relationships, and
Mhm.
why so many people like want to ghost rather than feel the shame of rejection. Yeah, chew on that.
Right.
Sometimes
I know
sometimes I
because
have
it
my
is.
moments.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody knows that ghosting is like doing someone pretty dirty.
Yeah.
And like, depending on the intensity, the depth of the relationship, like, it's just, yeah, I think people maybe don't know what to say, how to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do want to call out like explicitly that there are like valid reasons to ghost too. If you think your safety is at risk, if you like give a rejection, like if you found out like the person you're dating was like maybe unstable and could hurt you, I think that's a very valid reason to like ghost. Also to like contact the authorities if you actually have like a credible threat. But like
Maybe
I
that's what people are thinking.
sorry, what was that?
It's like maybe that's what people are thinking every time.
Maybe I don't know. I mean I definitely know like as a man I have to be more conscientious about that the way I like approach women, and like I have to be very aware of like my aura, my vibes, and like how I interact with people, because I know I could very easily be perceived as a threat very
Vibe
easily.
checks all the time. Yeah. Yeah, shit is real. It is. Like, men in particular can't handle rejection. I don't even want to even imagine the rates of domestic violence due to a breakup, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it's the statistics would be startling. It's
Yeah.
probably too intense for this audience.
Yeah, but I just wanted to, we don't have to dive into this scenario, but it's
Yeah.
something I wanted to,
No.
I wanted to just be fair that there are some valid reasons to ghost.
Gosh.
Okay, so you mentioned earlier, maybe about 10 minutes ago, that the way you don't have the capacity to ghost. So I want
Oh,
to explore
yeah,
that.
sure.
Like, how do you handle rejection? And how do you handle being rejected?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is one of the great things about this podcast is that
I'll take all the compliments I can.
oh my yeah, the feelings are the same, and this is the truest way you can feel or know who you are is the way you feel. And then the second you start thinking about those feelings, that's when all this other stuff gets introduced. and all
Yeah.
these other layers and all these other complexities. So, I mean, I think rejection, it feels like it it instigates a lot of insecurity, especially if you really care what this person thinks,
Mm,
you know.
yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, to reject someone, I actually think it is caring. To be clear, I mean, like, this is some people's literal mantra, you know. And yeah, and if you know how you're feeling, you can always share that with somebody. And it is actually pretty hard to get to that point to really share how you're really feeling. And there's always like, there's always a threat that someone could like lash back at you, you know,
Yeah.
like you could have to be on the defense too. They could question your judgment. They could say all kinds of fucked up shit, you know?
Yeah. I do want to emphasize, you mentioned that sharing your feelings is like one of the most important things and difficult things you can do. And like, I wholeheartedly agree. In fact, like, listeners of season one will know that I talked about this on about when I talked about being open hearted. And like, a part of that is really embracing your inner vulnerabilities and your inner shadows, like the things that are part of you that like seem like demons and monsters, but are really like parts of you. Like, we can't escape our shadows, and under a different perspective, it doesn't seem so scary. So like, I I agree. Like, being vulnerable, it hurts. I came from a place where before being vulnerable felt like a pain in my gut, and
Mm.
it took years of therapy to really like figure out what traumas were resulting in that. And once I like addressed it, then being vulnerable became easy. And then I realized being vulnerable is a gift. It's a gift that I'm giving to other people, because I'm creating this environment of vulnerability where they can feel safe to be vulnerable too. And
Totally.
I think being open about rejecting people, like openly rejecting them, I think is an excellent way to spread that same open-heartedness. Like you said, it's like, it's paradoxical, right? It seems cruel to reject people. In fact, that's what our minds think. It's like, oh, the lesser evil is to just not say anything, and maybe they'll forget about us. But they're probably not going to forget immediately. They will notice that you ghosted them. And
Right. Even the most like nonchalant people like
yeah,
are attending to that. That's
they'll
like knowable.
probably notice. So like, rejecting someone openly is like going into your heart and like saying, I recognize this feeling. This feeling is me, and I'm going to show my truth to someone that I cared about, even if I only cared about them for a couple hours, or if I cared about them for years and years. It is the final gift of your truth, of your heart.
Oof. I
And
love it.
and any moment that you get to share the gift of your heart and your love and your truth is like very worth it. You will I feel like an immense welling up of like of positivity, and like this like a serene grace that just goes over me, and I just feel it feels good to reveal my truth to others and to be true to myself.
Isn't that so amazing? And there's no better gift than to be the recipient of somebody's true feelings too,
Yeah.
and to just be like, yes.
Yeah. It feels good
Yes, I
when you
love that
get
you're telling me this. I love that you are feeling this and sharing this,
yeah,
whatever it is.
even when you get like a rejection text. Like, when I get rejection texts, I'm always grateful that they told me. And like, it's okay that it didn't work out, but like, being open and honest with your communication is showing me that you cared enough to let me know.
Totally. Totally.
And you'll get the same exact response, like, well, we won't text anymore.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, um, let's say you have a friend who's been ghosted. What would you tell them to console them?
I would be like, fuck that person anyway. You know? I'd be like, you have me still.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. Like reaffirm the community that they have because I it can feel lonely. It can feel like it
Yeah,
feels
yeah,
shitty being rejected like that.
for sure.
You think like you do definitely think like I've thought in the past like what's wrong with me? And I've had friends who've thought
Mm,
similar lines of thought like if they rejected me by ghosting me, they didn't care about me, so something must be wrong with me. And I think that's also like that's part of the pain and shame that the ghosted feels, the person who was ghosted.
totally.
And so like I don't know. I get why people don't want to get back into online dating or are like so pessimistic. Everyone is so pessimistic about dating in general
Mm.
because of like I don't know, I guess these fears of being rejected and dealing with that pain.
Yeah, and you know what? I was thinking about this too, and about ghosting in all context and time and space.
Not thinking about ghosting
Like
someone.
what?
When you said I was thinking about ghosting, I was like, you're not thinking about like ghosting someone, right?
I'm gonna do it right now.
Don't you dare ghost me. We're already on. We're already recording. No.
Bye. Except, yeah. Shit, I forgot what I was gonna say.
um,
Oh,
you're thinking about
ghosting in the
ghosting in
past.
context. Yep.
Like, so people could like literally just disappear.
Mm.
No
Hmm.
Facebook, no
Oh,
internet.
you mean before we had like internet and stuff?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you could ghost much more effectively back then, and it would be like twice as mysterious.
Well, maybe not though, because like communities were a lot smaller back then. So if you were in your
Mm.
village of like 300 people, you probably weren't that mobile unless you had like the resources to. So you might not have been able to ghost that effectively. They're gonna be at the grocery store. They're gonna be at the bar.
That's true. Somewhere in between the internet and villages,
Yeah, so
something with
so
transportation, but
maybe
maybe not
like
like
eight like
mail,
60s to 80s.
credit cards. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I
Anywho,
wonder.
I
I
think it's
would
a long-standing tradition of human behavior.
what ghosting?
Maybe, yeah. At least picking up and leaving,
Yeah. Picking up and leaving. I guess that can be considered ghosting. The
starting
classic meme
anew.
of my dad went to get cigarettes and milk and never
Yeah,
returned.
right, right.
What is that but a ghosting meme?
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe you're right. Maybe it is more part of the human condition or at least the human experience of dealing with our pain and our emotions and this like this like paradox of love in our heart that we can't like it becomes difficult for us to deal with. No one teaches us how to deal with our emotions, Tessa. Like you'd hope that
For
your
real.
parents would help you, but a lot of times you're taught to like just ignore all of the bad emotions and focus on the good emotions.
Yes. And this gets us back to vibes.
Vibes.
Because I think you can actually tell when someone is in good harmony with their emotions,
Oh, totally. What are some
right?
ways that you can tell?
Hmm. I don't know. There's a certain brightness.
Yeah.
um, I don't know. A kind of laid backness. Like
Hmm.
there's no like buzz communication going on between like themselves and their disposition.
Yeah. Yeah, they're in harmony. I can get that. Yeah. So like when I meet people that I feel are like well connected with themselves, I can tell.
Vibrating
Yeah, yeah.
on this level.
Yeah, like it's like when I talk to them, I feel like they see me differently than other people would see me.
Totally. A presence.
Yeah, or like recognizing you as you rather than recognizing you as like what other people see as you. It's
Right.
like, yeah, I don't know. I think part of that is that I'm very like I feel very like in tune with my emotions and with my like vibes, I guess. So it's easier for me to tell when people are in similar positions or at least are similarly on their journeys of figuring out their authentic chaos.
Mm. It's so interesting. I don't want to get too into it because it's so off topic, but
Yeah,
it
we'll like roll it back a little. We'll reel it back in, but like I want you to finish your point.
no, we don't have to get into it.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's a whole nother episode.
Yeah. Okay. So we talked about how you deal with. Did you answer rejected or rejecting? How do you feel
Um,
with?
you
How do you
know,
deal with rejection?
the feeling of being rejected, I think we can all understand.
Hmm.
What else is there? You know, we've talked about the like self doubt, the self even like replaying things that happened, being like, where did I go wrong? What I
Yeah. Yeah.
say? All of this stuff. Like, I think that's unavoidable, which is so unfortunate. And then I think for me, there's a little bit of uh, so being ghosted. I would say like, okay, like this person, like I can't have them in my emotional space anymore, right? I don't
Yeah.
want to think about this person, be reminded of them in any way, et cetera, et
Try to like
cetera.
scrub your memories.
Yeah, you know, and um, that's like the worst part of it is that like because of the ambivalence, like I can't stop wondering about it. And then that makes me more upset that I'm thinking about them.
Yeah.
You know, that's the worst part is that it has an effect which just ends up taking so much mental space. When if it's a clean, clear rejection, it's like, okay, like it's time to move on, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. It's like a conclusion.
Yeah, yeah. And it's, yeah, just a little bit more peace of mind.
Yeah. So I think this is an uh, important thing to talk about. That when you're talking about like reaching this conclusion, like you get this
Mm,
peace of mind, and a thing that a teaching that I read in a lot of like mindfulness and Buddhist books is that emotions are like scenes. They have a start and they will have an end. But if you never
mm,
let an emotion reach its end, it'll keep it'll keep returning because you never reach that conclusion. We live in a world where in a culture where we try to make the happy moments last on forever, and we try to make the moments that we're uncomfortable with like go away. We try to ignore them. But then what ends up happening? Do we live in this like constant happy world of like positivity? No, no, we don't. You know that like we find that like the things that we try to avoid, the pain we try to avoid just keeps coming back. The memories keep coming back because we never
even
find
when
it.
you're actually happy, right?
Hmm?
Even in your happiest moments, they keep like,
Oh yeah. They will always come back. Yeah, they will come to ruin. I've seen people like be worried about things in like a moment where they should be really excited or really happy, and
mm,
like it takes you out of enjoying of being able to be present and being able to experience the positivity around you. It it's like if you're constantly upset at the weather and you just stare at the clouds all day, you're going to feel like the bad weather never goes away and that it's just constantly there because you're making it your present.
Reporting from Seattle.
Yeah, it's still gray today. But then you're missing out on but then you're tying yourself to it. You're tying your whole vibe to that negative emotion or to that emotion that's hurting you. Really, like none of these emotions have positive or are like objectively positive or negative. They're just feelings that we have. There are our like lizard brain, this ancient part of our brain that like is so old that like reptiles and like mammals and like things that aren't as like sentient as us like really still experience some sort of feelings, and maybe they're like more complex than us, but I think it's like this part of the brain that like thinks and is our rational side and tries to like push back on the negative emotions really doesn't understand a lot of these feelings that we have because it's much newer in evolutionary terms. So I think like that's part of the reason why we get so fixated on like making the good times last forever and the bad times like never like go away immediately, but then like we cause this tumult in our mind, our like this chaotic sea for us, and like it keeps us from being present. And yeah, I think reaching that conclusion in the same way we can consider the feelings of rejection. We should consider the feelings of rejection similarly to a bad memory you had or the storm clouds in my analogy. Like it will go away. It is a pain, but if you let it conclude instead of blocking it and making it go away, then the memories won't need to keep popping up because it's gone. It's done. The scene is over. We've moved on.
And so with ghosting, the middle of the scene just stretches out forever.
Yeah, you
until
don't
you
finish
can
the
come
scene,
to your
you just,
own
you
peace
just
with
sort of
it.
hit pause.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to end the scene on your own
Yeah.
without the other player.
And it's this like really the brain is this really annoying like video player that like even though you pause the video every couple days we'll just play it again, and we'll always play the same section, so like it's just looping over and over. So that's why you should just watch it to the end. I'm pretty sure back in the old web days there were players like video players like that. Things were janky.
Oh my God. You're aging yourself. Your TikTok followers are going to be like, what the fuck is he talking
I'm not
about?
aging myself. Time is aging me.
So funny. Yeah. So ghosting. Oh my God. What a trip.
Okay. So, let's talk about let's say, what is advice you'd give to someone who is trying not to ghost, but is like trying to, maybe people who want to actually get better at rejecting someone, and it doesn't have to just be in a dating context. Even though this month is about dating, ghosting applies to other types of relationships too. So, what if someone is like, hey, I kind of feel like an asshole. I don't want to ghost them. Like, but how do I reject them?
I would assume that the communication problem goes much deeper than just this conversation.
That's a good place to start. Yeah.
I'm imagining this, and I'm like, well, what kind of text are you sending before this?
Yeah.
Like, are they substantive? Are they meaningful? Are they memes?
Are you saying memes are indicative of ghosting? I take offense
No,
to
I
that.
mean, I think you could actually reject someone with a meme. I think that's totally valid communication for
Oh
sure.
yeah, memes are communication.
Yeah,
I
totally.
agree.
But like, I guess, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would just say keep it simple. Just let them know. Just let them know that you're not into this relationship. You've made a decision, and whatever your preferences are.
Okay.
And yeah, I think that what you said earlier about like holding on to that relationship, you hope that you would change your mind or that's what it sounded like to me at least, that like maybe I will end up liking this person and that'll make them happy,
Mm-hmm.
I'll be happy, everybody's good, and you're kind of like trying to make yourself change your feelings. I think some people are doing that too, maybe thinking that they're going to change, or and just like not ever getting there, and it's just like gone. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I
Never
think
try to change your feelings.
yeah, I think that's a why do you think you shouldn't try to change your feelings?
I'm starting to think it's like the whole uh what's that called? Scaffolding of capitalism, man.
What, changing your feelings?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I can't say it hasn't crossed my mind in the last 5 minutes. Like just talking about like people in the
Mm-hmm.
past. I'm like, when did people start hiding their feelings, or is this something that people have always struggled with to understand, you know?
That's a good question. Because there are obviously like groups of people and like religions and cultures that like where you embrace your emotions and you embrace sort of your discomforts. But there are other like cultures where you really don't. And like I don't know if like it's a I don't know if the capitalism like really define like is a good way of defining like why, or like maybe this predates capitalism, but you could, I think there is an
It
argument that,
definitely helps keep the order.
oh, for sure. I mean, there's an argument that the same like way our mind it works and is connected and how we like have evolved to survive is the same like same mindset that like makes us want to avoid our emotions, and the same mindset that like builds these capitalist structures that then encourage avoiding our emotions. Like when I said like I said, we try to make the good times last forever and the bad times never happen, and guess what, there are pills you can buy for both of those. There's an industry around making you happier and making you less sad when you don't need to
Totally.
spend money on it. It's within yourself.
Totally. Yeah, I am totally into this idea about well, I don't know, capitalism, the general structure that we live in, whatever kind of
Yeah.
Christian patriarchy this is. Um, and I've had a few jobs where I supervise children, and
Hmm.
some of the things that piss them off the most is little acts of injustice, unaddressed injustice. They
Yeah.
tattle on each other,
Oh yeah, yeah.
etc. And um, the first thing that they get told is just like, calm down, chill out. Like, and then it gets smoothed over. Like if a kid cuts in line, everybody's just like flipping out about this.
Yeah.
And you have to just be like, no, calm down. We have to go to lunch in 5 minutes to eat our gruel and go to recess 15 minutes after that.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
you
I
know?
remember school lunch gruel. I hope it's better these days, but 'cause when I was in like elementary school, that stuff was gross.
Yes. Yeah, but it was like, it was at the convenience of the authority, whether or not it was a big deal. It was just like,
Yeah.
all
The
right, we
tr-
have to move on to this, and the kids have to learn like your emotions cannot be dealt with right now. It has to stop.
yeah.
And yeah, you have to move on or you're going to get in trouble too.
And I think it goes even
Right?
it's like even in parenting, like what do you do when what do people do when toddlers throw tantrums? They usually they'll yell at them or tell them to ignore it or calm down, and it's not as common to say like, hey, like I understand you're dealing it, and usually it's because like it's causing you shame and you embarrassment because you might be afraid that other people are thinking, oh, you're a bad parent, you're letting your toddler throw a fit in a Home Depot. But like then you're teaching your toddler to hey, whenever bad emotions come up, you just push them away. You just ignore it. It'll go away. Don't worry. Definitely won't come back years down the line.
Yeah, it goes unprocessed too often.
Hmm.
I do agree that kids do need to calm the fuck down.
But
I
like,
mean,
put yourself in their
if
shoes. Their brain is like developing and trying to understand the
yeah,
world. And if like, how much of your life do you think is based on your lived experience? Or like how much of who you are today is based
like
on your lived experience?
100%, is this a
Exactly.
trick
And a
question?
toddler has only like 2 years of lived experience, Tessa. 2 years. And like the first like 6 months, they might not have remembered anything because they didn't have like, they couldn't see things. They could barely see, they could barely process the images. So they've got like maybe a year and a half of lived experience. So of course they're
Yeah.
gonna be crazy and they're gonna go wild and play with everything and want like that affection from everything. And why would you try to
Wow.
reject people? Why would you ghost people at that point?
Wow. The toddlers are lucky to have you as their advocate.
I
You
am
know,
I am now a toddler abolitionist. Let toddlers feel.
yeah, they don't have that much lived experience. Cut them some slack.
Would you share? Would you spare a lived experience donation to toddlers that are sadly lacking?
Oh,
Uh,
teach them little lessons.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's interesting though, and I think it's pretty legit if you're very, very upset, like heaving, sobbing, like physically like crying like toddlers do.
yeah,
It is kind of hard to understand how you're feeling at that time too.
yeah. And like you didn't learn to at that point to remove the physical aspects of that pain from the mental and emotional aspects from that pain. So you're just like firing on all cylinders. You're kind of like imploding.
Yeah, and I have been thinking that a lot of the discussion about like being in touch with your feelings sounds like a conscious decision, like something that people can just be like, I want to do this.
Like today, I'm gonna wake up and be in touch with my feelings. It's Feelings
Yeah.
Friday, baby.
Yeah. Just like one day a week, try it out. I don't know,
Yeah,
start a habit. Um, but yeah, I think so many people aren't even to that level of awareness, of consciousness about feeling their feelings, you
yeah,
know? So it's just like, at least it was for me for a long part of my life. We're representing the Midwest today. I don't know if this is nationally a thing, but yeah, I probably lived like 3/4 of my life, like not really knowing about the emotional side of my entire being.
oh yeah, easily. I
It's
mean,
just like there, it was just like languishing, unused, unexplored,
yeah.
underutilized. So
And
sad.
what changed? What got you to like
Such a good question.
feel it? Yeah,
Such a good question. I don't know. A lot of things, a lot of
yeah. It's never
small
one thing.
things. Yeah, definitely therapy. Um, yeah, I don't know, just like really good, true friendships.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, people have just shown me that they care about me unconditionally over and over. So blessed.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I don't know. And yeah, just feeling a lot more self-love, a lot more like, yeah, I don't know which came first.
yeah. It's probably hard to like really know because they probably developed at the same time. Were you aware that you had this deficiency, that you weren't like in tune with your emotional side?
No, I don't think so at all. And
When do
this
you think that
is,
awareness came?
man, I really can't pinpoint it. I really have very few guesses. I definitely got a deeper understanding of my breadth of
Mm,
mental health during the pandemic.
yeah.
You know, I felt at that time though that I was pretty well equipped, like mentally and emotionally, and like feeling pretty good. Yeah.
I think that's an interesting point because I think it was around the pandemic that I came to my own like realizations that like
Shit's
I was
happening,
never
man.
dealing with my emotional needs. Yeah, I
That
think
pandemic was a blessing in some ways. Just saying.
yeah. In some ways, it was an awakening, but like
Yeah,
yeah, a tragedy too. But
definitely. That's my statement too.
yeah, that's so fascinating. I think like everyone gets to their in their journey of like understanding themselves and understanding their authentic chaos at different points and starts at different points. And I've talked before that the I think one of the first steps, or the most important first steps to like really being true to your emotions and embracing your emotions is to really like be aware that you aren't, and just be aware of them. Like you first have to like acknowledge that they exist in in a different context than you probably currently do think, that like they're not just these like little shadows or like little demons that like you can just avoid and ignore because your rational logical mind will like lead you through the day and will make everything better. You have to realize that they're your shadows. They are part of you. They are you just as much as your thoughts are you and your consciousness is you. And you can't just ignore like a whole third of who you are and feel like whole. So for me, a lot of it started with reading. It started with reading
Mm.
while in therapy. So I was reading a lot of like psychology books on like how to deal with emotional needs and like some of the pains that I was feeling. And then I was in therapy for similar things, and I realized through that like I wasn't dealing with my emotional needs. And then I started reading more mindfulness books on my journey, and I came to books that I mentioned before in this conversation about how emotions don't have a positive or negative judgment. That judgment comes from our ego. It comes from our like logical mind that is taking these sensations and applying like oh, this is, other people don't think this will be good, or other people will think this is good. So like first is understanding that we have these emotions, and then the next part is just removing your judgment toward them, letting them complete, not getting fixated on any of them, and just live in the harmony, live in the space of your chaos instead of trying to fight it. Because when you do live in that space, you will start to understand it. And now I'm at the point where I can feel myself start getting sad and like understanding why I'm crying when I cry, or like understanding the sensations that are going through me just as well as I can understand like sensations that are going through my physical self. And I think that gives, if you are going into love and going into relationships looking for someone to complete you, as is the cliche, you're going in for the wrong reason. No one will ever complete you. You have to complete yourself. And so we're going to circle this back into ghosting, because
Go,
I think
go.
a big part of why so many people ghost is because we're not addressing our emotional needs. We're trying to push away this pain of rejection. And if you are someone who's trying to find the courage within yourself to not ghost other people, I would first suggest thinking, how would you feel if you got ghosted? Like, it sucks, right? Being ghosted sucks. It hurts. So now imagine the person you're talking to is just as complex and just as worthy of love as you are, right? You like them for a reason, so they must be somewhat like worthy of these things. So Why can't you take that pain that you felt and empathize with them and say they would feel that bad? And why would you want to be the perpetrator of that level of pain? Unless you're like, I mean, yeah, barring you being like a vile person, I don't think anyone is a truly vile person. I don't think people intend to bring pain on others. I think we're just so stuck in our head that we only think about our own feelings of rejection, that we don't think about the shame that we'd bring to ourselves by causing other people that same level of pain. And when you realize that, when you realize you're talking to a real human being who's just as complex as you and just as worthy of love as you, then you don't want to ghost them. You want to tell them the truth. And maybe your relationships change. Relationships are fluid things. Maybe you become really great friends. I've made really excellent friends with women I've dated. And I think like other people could too. It doesn't have to be a rarity, because like you liked these people for a reason. And if you honestly, authentically liked them, then why not try to keep them in your lives if it makes sense?
Yes.
Yeah. That's what I would
Yes.
tell someone who wants to stop ghosting or wants to get better at it.
And then we have to talk about the feelings, the context, the expectations behind being ghosted.
Okay.
Because there is the possibility of a mutual ghosting in which no one cares to talk to each other anymore, and it doesn't really hurt that bad or whatever. Maybe that's a possibility for what people are thinking. We're like, well, maybe they don't care just as little as I care.
Yeah. Do you
Depends on
consider that ghosting if like the
so
conversation ends?
right. No, I think ghosting does need some provocation. Someone needs to say like, "What's up? What are you
Yeah.
doing next week?" and then hear nothing.
Yeah, I think it's like the maybe the mismatch of intentions or mismatch of like the desire for the relationship, because like someone has to say like, and this can happen to friends too, someone has to be interested in like keeping this connection going, and then the other person maybe says no.
And this is where the fantasy of love and romance comes in too. Because I think that there is a art and a science to relationships. And I think some of these things like can be predicted and addressed earlier. Like, I don't know. Going through the definition of ghosting, I don't think I've actually ever have been ghosted. I only
Really,
have been
that's
rejected.
impressive. How have
I
you
don't
avoided
think
being
technically ghosted. Well,
how do you avoid being ghosted? Because like
I
you
just
can't
don't think
control someone
I don't think
texting you
it's
back.
happened. I don't think it's happened to me in the terms of ghosting.
Interesting.
Like, I don't know. Maybe I blocked it out of my memory because it was so traumatic.
So what makes you think that you are unghostable?
Oh, well, I mean, that's a whole nother. I mean, if you get your own closure, have you been ghosted?
Ooh. You know what?
You know,
I'll say no. I'll
if
say if
you,
you've got closure, like, because I think that's the important thing. I don't think it matters, like, if you already rejected each other and already said like we don't really want this to go any further, then I think like after that point you already got your conclusion. It's not considered ghosting anymore if they don't respond to your hey.
right, right. But if, but if, sorry, I lost my train of thought.
It's okay. These things happen sometimes. So what? So Do you have any final thoughts on ghosting in general that we haven't
Oh my
talked about
God.
that you want people to hear?
Let me look at my notes. I just wrote this one today.
Oh, a
Um,
new thought. I'm
so
excited.
have you ever worried about the person who's ghosted you? Ever
Worried
been
in
like,
what
oh my
way?
God, maybe they got hit by a car, maybe they were just in a random act of violence in the United States of
Oh,
America.
you mean like as the reason that they ghosted you?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh
precisely.
shit.
They're probably in the hospital. Shit.
Ooh. Huh.
Or even just even less dramatically than that. Just like, I hope they're okay, which I think is legitimate too,
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely
like mentally.
I've definitely thought about that. Like, well, occasionally, I'll get memories of like women that ghosted me or relationships that didn't work out or that ended, and I'll think to myself like, oh, I wonder if they're all right. I hope they're all right. Like, I'll send out a positive intention out there for them. Like,
That's nice.
I won't go look up their information. Like, I don't care if they're not in my life. I'm not in their life, but I just want to send like positivity and like I hope they're doing well. Everyone deserves their own self-love. Everyone deserves their own happiness and their own truth, and I hope they find it too.
Bless up.
Yeah, I mean, and think about it. What are you gaining by looking up the one who got away? Your ex, like the person that ghosted you, even though you were having a really great time. Like, why? What does it help? I and like I want to get back to this theme.
That's the most frustrating part of it too. It's for a person such as myself who's always focused on productivity. It's like it pisses me off. It's so inefficient. It's such a waste of time.
I mean, to the ghoster, maybe it's efficient, but
Right. They won't get away with it.
yeah. I think once it's like these memories and these thoughts are definitely tied to these like feelings of rejection that like sometimes like they will come back more intensely when you haven't dealt with like your feelings and haven't let that go to a conclusion and accepted that maybe it's over or like they're not coming back. And that's okay. That's okay because you have people who love you. You have friend friends,
Fans.
friends and family, friends. No, you have family, you have friends, like you may have other loved ones, like you have this community of love around you, like but once again, I think it goes back to that like it's an uncomfortable feeling rejection and we hate uncomfortable feelings. But once you like kind of learn to let it go and learn to be okay with it, it frees up your mind. Sometimes these memories do come up to me, but they don't have any emotions associated with it. It feels like looking at an old photograph of someone from my past or from someone else, but like a photograph that I don't have like any strong emotions to. It's just a thing that happened.
Totally.
And it frees me up to be more present in like my life and in the relationships I have and in growing those. And that's something that I want for you, Tessa, and the listeners. Like, we deserve it to ourselves. The same fears that may have resulted in us ghosting other people, or the fears that came up during when we were ghosted or when we thought we were going to be ghosted. Those same fears are present in your relationships today. And we can't just lie to ourselves and assume that they're not there. They are there. And the only real thing that we can do with ourselves and the real thing, authentic thing we can do for our partners is be okay with it. This fear is here. It is okay. It will go. It will pass. And then with that, you will be able to be more present in the relationships you have today. And that presentness is the best thing you can do to strengthen any relationship, because your partner, your friends, your loved ones, they want you. They don't want someone who's stuck in the past or the future, or in these delusions. They want you. That's the person who they love. So give them you. And when you do that, when you are authentic with yourself and feel these emotions, and I talked about this on my episode about starve your ego, feed your soul. When you're true to yourself, you don't have to worry about lying to other people about who you are, because you will never, being you and being honest about yourself will be second nature. It'll be as obvious and as automatic as breathing or saying your name. And
Amazing.
That's my big takeaway for you. If you want better relationships, learn to let go of these feelings. Feelings come and go. They're like the tide. The tide comes in, the tide moves out, goes in, moves out, goes in, moves out. And you know what? It's okay, because it has a start, it has an end. Your emotions are similar. For you people just listening, I did my best impression of a wave right now, and it was pretty mediocre.
I saw it. It looked just like a wave.
And Tessa's been surfing a lot, so she knows waves.
Very similar to a wave, I could tell you. Yes. I think that we should actually work on some practical advice.
Okay.
For being ghosted.
Okay. I like that idea. Do you have any?
I've got a few thoughts.
Let's go. Let's hear it. It's a great way to end the episode. Yes,
it happens, and I think you can get yourself out of it in a relatively short amount of time. For max efficiency, to get back out there, find someone 10 times better.
All right, you heard that. Get back out there.
So I think you can call it quits, that you can say that you've been ghosted. Once you've met the criteria for being ghosted at 48 hours, maybe 24 if you're at a tight ship.
So put a time limit on communication.
48 hours, no text back. You've sent a text with a question in it, perhaps, expecting a response. Nothing back for 48 hours.
I think just a hey may not be enough to warrant a response. Let's ask a question.
This is all important, right?
Yeah, it is.
And so 48 hours, I would suggest at the very least muting them on your social media accounts. Don't look at them. Don't look at what they're doing. Maybe mute their friends too, just in case they pop up on there. I think you should write about how you're feeling. Write it down. Tell a bunch of people. You got ghosted. Tell as many people as you know, because nobody talks about it enough.
Yeah. I think it's that shame.
And everyone's going to be like, oh, that's so fucked up. They'll make you feel better about it,
Yeah. True.
Yeah, what do you think?
And it's good practice for being vulnerable.
Totally. And it's a good reminder to yourself that you have to commit to letting this person go out of your life. I don't know. I guess it's something that I just find a deal breaker, such lack of communication. They would have to have a pretty good excuse, depending on the intensity of the relationship. Honestly, some people, you can cut them and leave them and not really look back, and some people, if it's going to bother you, if it was like a deep relationship, if you were your most vulnerable self with them and were rejected, in such a way that is so lacks intimacy of any kind,
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Uh, any other thoughts about?
I think so. What I had done in the past, my criteria for determining if I was ghosted. So because like I had cases where I would send a text and they wouldn't actually see it, but like a
Mhm.
couple days later, I would send another text, and I never double text. Like that's the last text I'll send basically,
Uh, never
because
triple
there's a chance
text.
they didn't see it, they got busy, they forgot. I think that's
Ugh.
normal.
I hate making excuses for people too, but I do that too. Like,
Yeah.
well, maybe
and I
they didn't do it
and
on
I think it's
purpose.
fine. I think it's fine to do it, like, but keep it at two texts, only double text, and if they don't respond within 48 hours to your second text or 24 hours, then yeah, just accept that you're a ghosted. I love the idea of muting them. It doesn't have to be permanent, but just to, because you're going to be going through a lot of pain, a lot of feelings of rejection, like feelings of being unloved and loneliness. And seeing them in social media might not be great for you. So the first thing you want to do is try to like remove the negative like judgments you have there by removing the things that would cause you to remember them. And then once you've dealt with it and come to your conclusion that the relationship has ended, you can never like make the partner come to a conclusion on that, but it's important for you to reach that conclusion too. And once you do, you can unmute them. That's fine, because the memories may come back, but the emotions associated with them won't. And I think that's just a healthy way of dealing with any kind of rejection, and especially if you're at the point where dealing with your shadows and your vulnerabilities are difficult, and it causes you a lot of discomfort to try to do that. So if you're at that point, I think the things that Tessa said could be super helpful for you to just get experience with dealing with these vulnerabilities. And
Yeah.
so excellent, excellent advice.
Yeah. Um, someone not being able to tell you something so important is like already such a communication breakdown,
Yeah.
deal
Yeah.
breaker.
Yeah.
Like to
It
not
probably
even be
wouldn't
able
work
to
out
receive
long term
that
anyway.
message. Exactly, exactly. That's why you gotta just like let these things go. Yeah, that's not the future that is good for you. If you're looking for these relationships which are meaningful and deep and caring and accepting, this is not the right relationship that ends this way anyway.
I agree. I agree.
Mm, mm, mm. But it will not at you night and day, regardless.
Yeah, and that's why you have to just you have to sit through it. Sit through the discomfort. Don't try to push it away. Don't
Yes.
hit pause.
Mm-mm.
Just let it finish.
Process it out,
Yeah.
but don't cause yourself any more pain in the meantime.
Yeah. 100%.
Wondering.
100%. You don't deserve that pain. You don't need to go through that pain. You deserve better. Well, Tesla, this has been
Amen.
a fabulous conversation. Thank you so much for joining me today. And for you listeners, as always, embrace your chaos with kindness. Thank you for experiencing the podcast with us.